but he wanted to look like Balthazar, so I said, I'll be so happy to pass on the building design to whoever designed it. But the second worst review was Waikia, which was a Chinese chef who had lived in Japan that Nobu brought to the United States. So Nobu was producing Waikia, and we were supposed to design it in Bryant Park Hotel. It's at the David Chipperfield Hotel in Bryant Park. Nobu came into the food event that I went to, and Nobu said, what do you think of the food? Then I told him I thought it needed work, and 6 months later, this was happening here and I wasn't doing it. And I said maybe I was too honest about the food. And it was in the incredible redo, the Ian Schrager, Julian Schnabel redo of the hotel, which is just amazing. But Waikia never really worked. The food was really expensive. It was service was pretentious, and the room turned its back on Gramercy Park. So it was a long processional red fringe thing with a bar on one side. So when Danny called and said, how would you like to take Waikia and turn it into an Italian trattoria for me, I thought that was great. So that's what this is. He lived in Rome for a long time, so he really knew the cuisine. We traveled to Rome, we looked around, and we talked about two easy early directions. One is a kind of recreation of a trattoria, a la Balthazar or Pastis, kind of a loving, piece-by-piece recreation, which we didn't want to do. And the other approach was the sort of modern abstraction that he didn't want to do, though I was tempted. So as we started to get into what made a trattoria, we looked at rituals, and we thought, if you forget about design for a second and say, what are the unspoken rituals between service and regulars, and a lot of it is regulars. Part of it is you see a lot of service points. The room is designed around food. You feel very welcomed. And then, so we had two ideas going to the restaurant. One was something that was steeped in a trattoria vocabulary, but had a slightly urban feel, thus the black and metal and custom bronze. All the light fixtures were made in Brooklyn and are hammered or metal and bronze in some way that relates to Gramercy Park. And the other interesting thing was thinking about it as a neighborhood restaurant, so that the bar, like many of Danny's restaurants, would be a place you could fall into and not take reservations.
Can you actually?
Yeah, no reservations in the bar. So and we started to think about, in fact, Gramercy Park is like a little European park. It's the closest thing to a European scale public space. So most of the artwork, 70% of the artwork, was commissioned by us and Danny from Robert Kushner, who did Gramercy Tavern. And he, as it turns out, has this wonderful collection of Italian books and does these beautiful drawings. So you'll see the artwork. Again, if this were, when you look at images, you go to Trattoria, if they needed a refrigerator, you would see funny details like a banquette where a refrigerator would just be slipped in because you needed it there. That seemed a little self-conscious for New York, but that sense of casual putting service where you could see it, and while the collection of images was all assembled at once and commissioned at once, it has a slight feeling of variety. The bar is one large piece of walnut. The floor is a custom concrete tile that's loosely based on the floor in the Pantheon. You'll see out there. And then we're going to walk through from the trattoria to the cucina, the little kitchen area. On one side is desserts and bread, and on the other side is salumi and cheese. And then you move through that area to the main restaurant. Very simple, unexpected details like hand-woven leather on the back of some of the banquettes. Danny is incredibly obsessed with no color. So we did sneak in some green, which he was a little iffy about, but now he likes it. What else can I tell you? The most interesting thing about the restaurant for me is the lighting, because while clear filament bulbs are kind of all the rage, I thought there was something about trattorias where you'd see glare. Like, it's usually bad lighting, right? And the closest thing to glare is exposed filament. So all of these fixtures are custom made, as I said, in Brooklyn. And the room really transforms from day to night because there's all of this light that pours in. So my favorite thing is to sit at the table in between about 5:30 and 8 and have a casual meal and just see how the room changes from extroverted to introverted, which just doesn't happen a lot in New York. The other interesting thing to do is a kind of sociology experiment, is walk from the hotel to the restaurant. Because on Ian's side, Ian's about privileged access and velvet ropes and the Rose Bar, and you know, so I would say that's like a Kubrick movie. That's kind of like The Shining. This is more like the Merchant Ivory production on this side. But it's fun just to go through that transition. The wainscoting, all the wood is oak from an old barn in New Jersey. The beams are also white oak that's reclaimed. And you'll notice that all the wainscoting, if you look carefully, has a metal edge. So even the wood that is rustic has a kind of urban slight edge to it.
You could take her first and leave everything else. That's what I would do.
We're locked in.